Hello, Southwest Florida. Welcome back to Lee Pitts Live. We're here at McGregor Clinic. We appreciate the outstanding accommodations. And there's nothing like the services that you get at McGregor Clinic, keeping everybody healthy. I finally got him here in the studio after years of trying. Everybody knows that Lee Pitts gets all the interviews. Neil Votz, running around all over the state, all up in Washington, D.C., the Deputy Director for Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, and you can even see him on the dance floor at Lee Pitts Live after work. Welcome to Lee Pitts Live, Neil.
Thank you, Lee. Honor to be here. I appreciate it.
Hey, Neil, man, you are amazing. The way you bring the community together, one thing. The way that you network and know everybody and you're everywhere. Because of what you do, that is something that you have to be constantly on the move on. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's definitely correct. I work with people who are impacted by the justice system, and there's a lot of us all over the state. So you're right. It's a lot of work and a lot of connections.
What is so fascinating to me is the movement that you have started. So many other people have jumped onto that movement because a lot of people weren't educated on how the rights of people who have been incarcerated were taken away from them in terms of the ability to vote and be a part of. That's just one of the rights, but just to be a part of acclimating into mainstream America. Expound on it, if you will.
Well, yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, it's a big kind of process in our society that people who get a conviction in Florida, for 150 years, they lost the right to vote. And it wasn't until we passed the ballot initiative a few years ago, Amendment 4, that restored voting rights for about 1.4 million people in the state who have convictions. Like anything, it's a challenge because implementing that is a lot harder than simply passing a ballot initiative. So there's a lifetime of work ahead of us to make sure that people who are re-entering the community, can re-enter as full citizens, because we all benefit when we're able to see each other as, with the dignity of fellow human beings. That when you're done, you're done. And you should be able to get a job, you should be able to find a place to live, you should be able to be a citizen. And really what really drives me is the idea that when that happens, everybody benefits. Sometimes we live in this really polarized world where somehow somebody thinks that if someone benefits, they lose something. But there's really not a loss in this situation when we realize that 95% of the people coming out of incarceration are moving into our communities, and we all benefit if that reentry process works.
I want to go back to passing the ballot. When you say you passed the ballot, I think you said 19 what?
So it was in 2018, Amendment 4.
Okay, so what was the strength? What was the main thing on that ballot that people could look at and say, look, we need to vote in favor of this?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I found was so strong and something I'll never forget, it just touched like basic values that all of us believe in. The idea of redemption and forgiveness and restoration, that's something that's in all of us, and we were able to connect with people across all the divisions that we see, right? Like, to be honest with you, Lee, when this started, everyone who knew anything told us there's no way you could put an initiative on the ballot in Florida that talks about race and crime and voting and get over 60% of the vote, right? It's a very partisan time we live in. But we didn't have any other options, right? It was like this came from family members and loved ones who were like, this is our shot. We got to put it on the ballot, and collected almost 1 million petitions to get it on the ballot, and then to watch it pass with almost 2/3 of the vote was really amazing.
How did this become your passion and life work as an adult?
Yeah, I mean, really, I got a felony conviction. I earned it. I made some stupid, selfish decisions, a couple decades ago at this point, and then realized what a challenge it was to try and re-enter the community as somebody with a felony conviction, getting told no for employment, getting access to housing, in which 90% of certain communities, here in Southwest Florida even, are not available to people with felony convictions. How do you get credit? How do you try and build a business? How do you try and flourish? One of the things we are working on right now, which is really dear to my heart, is trying to change the law in Florida as it relates to how you get job licenses. Right now, 1/3 of employers or 1/3 of jobs in Florida require a license, and you can be denied simply because you have a felony conviction. Our view is that if it's relevant to the work, if I have an embezzlement charge, yeah, the bank should, that's relevant. But being told that I can't even get a boat captain license because of a drug charge 25 years ago seems to be counterproductive for all of us. So those are the kind of things that come from the heart and my past experiences.
When you first set out on this mission, did you ever realize or think that it would grow to the point that it has grown now?
No.
In terms of public interest, in terms of the attention that it has gotten?
No, I got to say, for me, and part of my story, and thank you for asking, is I did come from politics. I worked in D.C., and so I came at this way more politically than what it actually is, which is a movement of human beings just trying to improve our communities. And I remember the specific moment. Our executive director, Desmond Meade, is a dear friend, but he's a great leader in our state. And I was talking to him ad nauseum for months on end, all about the politics of how to get the bill passed, how do we work in a bipartisan way, and I think there's a lot of value in that. But I'll never forget him telling me, he's like, this thing's bigger than politics. At the end of the day, we're gonna pass this amendment if people see us as human beings. And if we can create a society in which we see each other as human beings first, and not with all the divisions and differences that inevitably, divide us.
In that whole structure of what you do, there is simply no way that you cannot be dealing with all of the diverse communities, people, income statuses, stations in life, educational background. People of all walks of life different people have interfaced where their rights have been taken away from them because of being incarcerated or what have we. Talk about the beauty of that.
Oh man, you are so right. Like I think we all come to this from our perspective, but when you think about the millions of people in Florida who have arrest records or have convictions, it is all walks of life. One of the things that was really impactful for me as we were kind of passing the ballot initiative, going all over the state, talking to people, was just how things grow. Right, because the felon disenfranchisement in Florida stemmed from a Jim Crow law 150 years ago. Like it was set up to keep black people from voting. And then you see how a cancer built on hate like that can just expand to the point when we passed Amendment 4, there were more people who looked like me who had felony convictions than Desmond, right? So it had grown to impact, like you said, people from all walks of life, all community, and at the same time it did have there's a racial disparity in terms of who gets impacted by the criminal justice system. So there's a couple things happening at the same time, but as long as it's built, for me, man, just built on human dignity and meeting people where they are and knowing that if we work together, we actually can make the world a better place. That helps drive that.
Right, the first time I was exposed to what you and your organization was doing, it was in Dunbar community. You guys were standing in front of a bus, and you had the microphones in your hands, and you were talking directly to the people. And it was just like I was looking back in the 1950s and 60s at the civil rights movement moving across the South. You would liken this to that type of a movement?
Yeah, I didn't know it necessarily when I got involved because of my experience was really, hey, this is a broken justice system, and now I have an opportunity to help fix some things. And then over time, I'll never forget being at Pastor Rawls' church up in Gainesville, and we were in the church where Dr. King spoke, and there was a person there who was there when Dr. King spoke, and he got up and just moved all of us to tears saying, hey, if Dr. King was alive, he'd be doing this right now. And I'm like, it was overwhelming for me to kind of be like, whoa, some white dude from Ohio, not really connected with the civil rights movement, suddenly in a place where it felt like, oh, we're making progress, and we got to keep fighting for that, Lee?
And the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition is statewide, right?
Yep.
We are just blessed in the sense that we have essentially the deputy director just kind of lives in our community. So I'm able to yank you in for an interview. But your typical day, not that just kind of give people the scope of places you have to be, people y'all have to touch, and where you guys are all over the place.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Definitely a typical week for me usually means 2 or 3 days outside of Fort Myers. Last week in Orlando we had a job fair, so we team up with employers to do second chance job fairs so that people can have access to employment. Got a reentry event going on in Manatee in a couple days, so a lot of driving, meeting amazing leaders all over the state. To go up to Tallahassee when session is in town, and then honestly, one of the things that I really enjoy is our ability to work locally to change policies that help people. So I'll be up in Gainesville where they've actually implemented some really innovative reentry programs in which they're helping people who are coming out of incarceration in ways that have a big impact. They're passing second chance employment policies that'll make sure that everybody, that you can't be denied right on the front end simply because you have a felony conviction, that actually it's about the interview. Like, if you're fit or you're not a fit should derive that. So those are the kind of things that we work on any given week. And then we have, people all across the state.
Give your website so people can go for more information.
I think it's FloridaRRC.com. So www.FloridaRRC.com. Love for people to get plugged into events. If you're directly impacted or you're a family member and you want to become a member, get our emails and all those kind of things.
Everything is at that website.
Yes, sir.
You're a nonprofit.
Yes.
So I would assume that also there's an opportunity for people to make donations to help out in what you're doing.
Definly. We
just click on that donating button.
That's right. There is a donate button. Yes.
I'll be going to click on that button in the near future. Tell me a story of a person that was able to through this program, just one simple story of one person and how it changed their life by what you got, your movement.
Yeah, so I think of a person named Angel Sanchez, right? Dear friend of mine, grew up in Miami. He was incarcerated, first time 14, got sentenced at 15 into adult prison, serious charges. He was in for 14 years. And the thing that changed his life was education. Even though there was no official education programming there, his mom and dad, they brought him books, and he learned to see future through education. He applied for hundreds of community colleges, got access to one, ended up becoming the valedictorian, then he went to UCF, then he went to University of Miami, just got his law degree. Now he got accepted to Yale, and he's working at the Department of Justice as a fellow, and you know what he's getting to do? He's getting to build a prison to school pipeline. Now that we have Pell Grants back online, so for 30 years you couldn't have access to education in the prisons, but that changed a couple years ago, so now Angel's right in the middle of it. And in part, he worked it. In part, it was our experience of working together from 2015 until last year that he finally left for the Justice Department.
I find all of that quite fascinating because even as it relates to you personally and to Angel, is that although you got to experience a negative point in your lives, you turned it into a positive. And it's almost, to me, you don't want to experience that, but it was a blessing in disguise because you're helping so many more people.
Yeah, man, that you just nailed it, and the hair on my arms are standing up, because that really is what when we talk to folks, and my favorite part of the job is seeing real people who have been through pain develop purpose in their life, in part through what we do, right? It's a choice that they can make, but I love seeing someone who was afraid to share their story a year ago suddenly moving entire rooms to action because they have the courage to see that, yes, you can take that pain and you can throw the shame away and you can turn it into purpose and serve other people in the process.
What's in the future that people need to know about?
Yeah,
as it relates to what you do.
Okay, I think where we're really trying to get in the years ahead is to live up to the full promise of Amendment 4 and make sure everybody can vote and can do so clearly. But we have a real opportunity, I think, to break down barriers that exist to economic mobility for people, and in the process help our entire community. So got to go in and talk to our mayor about, expanding Ban the Box here in Fort Myers. He and his team are listening. But in my mind, it's like the vision of someone being able to get employment here in Fort Myers. We know employers need it.
Yeah.
We know that when somebody's able to get a job, that they're much less likely to reoffend, so then we don't have to spend all our tax dollars on law enforcement. Like there's a virtuous cycle here, and we'd like to see that expand across the state.
Yeah, as it relates to ban the box, that's always had to happen at the local level. It can't just be a big blanket amendment passed or a law passed at the state level.
It gets complicated, you're right. Here in Florida, for sure. We could do a more blanket type of deal, but yeah, I mean, last year we worked with 4 municipalities, a couple counties, to expand Ban the Box, but it was all done at the local level.
Congratulations on your organization being nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, just like Dr. King.
Man, I gotta tell you, Desmond and I got this call, and it was from the folks who nominated Dr. King in 1964, and we didn't know who they were, but they were forceful in getting on our calendar. Like we were both like, "Who are what's going on?" And they just jumped out and told us. Like we're crying like kids, and to see folks here in Lee County who have been working as a part of the organization, folks with convictions, folks who are like working really hard, you know, to improve their lives. The wind behind their back when they hear that the organization, right, so it was all of us, got nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, like that's just transformative.
Outstanding. And the environment that I came from, I love the environment that I came from, but I came from the inner city. I essentially came from poverty, and I saw a lot of things growing up. A lot of my friends got incarcerated as life moved on. And I know that I was probably just one step from having that change the course of my life. And I just might have gone left when somebody else went right or whatever, but I was in the middle of a lot of stuff coming along, and I'm sitting here now. And so I know that when people have the opportunity for a second chance, that's always better no matter what. And America has, to me, a reputation at some level. The arc of the moral universe bends towards justice, and we're so glad that we have people like you who are out there in your organization keeping an eye on it, not letting it stop under all the different political winds headwinds that we see to help people get their rights restored. I said that to say this: how does politics play into all of this? Does it end up lining up with the Democrats or the Republican side of the aisle?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a perception of that sometimes, and we even touched on it before. I think there's a perception that it's like, oh, this impacts a lot of black people who the numbers would suggest vote Democrat, and people make a partisan leap, but the numbers don't bear it out, right? So that's the challenge, is that you're dealing with the perception rather than reality, because this is a very diverse community of people from all walks of life who actually have, you know, the right, left, you know, and all things in between. For us as an organization, we always say that we don't lean right, we don't lean left, we lean forward into the issues. We'll work with anyone who will work with us to help improve people's lives. Like, it's funny, having worked in politics in the past, this just feels different. This is more urgent, right? Spend some time with people who are trying to re-enter the community, and you know what they don't have is time to worry about some debate in committee that's all ego-driven. It's like we just got to come up with solutions and keep making the case that, man, we can make things better. You know, the chain is only as strong as the weakest link, some people say, and there's these systems that impact us. Like if you've been impacted by the justice system, right, like it's a challenge to get your life put together. And so let's strengthen those people, and we strengthen all of society in the process.
Well, just so thrilled that Lee Pitts Live has been able to partner with you guys. Appreciate all the coming out and supporting us at Lee Pitts Live After Work. Your organization has always been up front and out there, connecting with the people. Want to continue to encourage you and the Florida Rights Coalition, Restoration Coalition, to keep doing the good work. Okay?
But if I can say thank you to you, literally today, one of the folks who's coming to one of your events, his goal is to be the next Lee Pitts in Fort Myers. He's a businessman, and so I just thank you for being such a beacon for us.
He has to be careful if he wants to be the next Lee Pitts, because people be shooting arrows.
I'll let him know.
Yeah, it'll be all right, though. So remember, for those who say it can't be done, they're usually interrupted by those like Neil and all the fine people at the Florida Restoration Rights Coalition. And Miami may have the oranges, but the Florida Restoration Florida Rights Restoration Coalition has got the
juice.
They got the juice. We'll see you.
Lee Pitts Live is a Lee Pitts Enterprise production.
Hello, everybody. This is Lee. I'm so glad that you watched that particular show. And if you enjoyed that show, we got other shows like that. Just subscribe to our YouTube channel. Watch Lee Pitts Live on demand anytime. And also hit us up on all our social media platforms. Just type in Lee Pitts Live, and there you go.